Hey everybody, how are you? It's Tim Schur, president of Schur Success Inc. And today we are doing another live stream. So I took off the suit and tie and we're just going casual and talking about leadership blind spots and what you can do to recognize these blind spots and upgrade them, because a leadership blind spot, and whether you're a leader of a company or you are a leader of yourself, you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, whether you have thousands of employees or you have a department that you're leading or you are an army of one, we want to pay attention to the blind spots that we have. A blind spot is a belief or a behavior that you are unaware of that is holding you back. Like if you're driving in a car and you go to turn into the other lane and the car in the other lane is there, but you can't see it because it's in your blind spot, then you could run right into it and cause an accident, which creates a whole bunch of problems that nobody wants. Leadership blind spots are when we are engaging in a behavior or we have habits or we come across in a way that weakens relationships, that loses customers, that cause us to lose our best teammates or employees. Leadership blind spots can cost us a whole bunch of time, money, and aggravation. And the problem with the blind spot is that it's blind. You don't see it. So I'm going to share 5 leadership blind spots with you today. These are very common. I see these repeatedly in different companies. Now, when it comes to a blind spot, because they're blind, because we're not aware of them, nobody's doing it on purpose. So if you recognize yourself with having any of these blind spots, if all of a sudden you're like, ooh, I've heard that feedback before. Or, oh yeah, my spouse is always telling me this. Or, you took a survey and you got some feedback that was a little uncomfortable, then realize that you cannot improve what you are not aware of. If you are aware of something, you can now improve it. You can make it better, right? So the goal is to not ignore our blind spots, but to become aware of them. Famous psychologist Carl Jung once said that the goal in life is to make the unconscious conscious. Otherwise, it will rule your destiny and you will call it fate, right? So if we're not aware of these unconscious beliefs and these unconscious habits or these blind spots that are influencing us at an unconscious level, if we're not aware of it, then we can't improve it. So let's jump right in. The very first leadership blind spot, no particular order, is their strategic thinking blind spot. So I'm going to approach this from a company level, and then I'm going to approach it from an entrepreneur level. So because often companies and entrepreneurs handle business in a very different way, which probably needs to change. I think companies need to think a little bit more like entrepreneurs. And then some of the strategic thinking that companies use, entrepreneurs could benefit from that. So it's a blend of 2 different worlds. So when, in fact, I might do a program for company leaders on how to think like an entrepreneur, because I've provided a presentation like that before and people really enjoyed it. So for now, let's talk about that strategic thinking blind spot. With strategic thinking blind spots, what happens is we're so busy doing the day-to-day operations that we're not pausing and looking at the bigger picture or looking at our compass and saying, are we on the right track? As the leader of your organization, your biggest job is to do 2 things. 1, have the vision for where you're headed. And then 2, enroll people and empower people to help fulfill that vision. That's your job as a leader. And often what I have found is leaders are not doing one or the other, right? They're either not focusing on the bigger picture because they're focusing on the day-to-day operations. They're focusing on how to survive instead of how to thrive. They're not focusing on putting in long-term improvements. They're focusing on quick fixes so that we can get through the situation. Like if you need a new computer program, we just keep patching the old one. It's like we could fix our company with duct tape, and instead of investing the time, investing the money, investing the resources, a lot of times people won't ask for help because they're like, well, then I have to train someone, and then it takes so much time to teach them how to do it, and I'm putting so much energy into it. Yeah, but if you don't take the time to train somebody, then you bottleneck your own productivity. You bottleneck your own ability to grow faster. So yes, it does take a little bit more time to do something that's going to have a lasting impact, but that will generate more sustainable revenue. That will create a stronger culture. That will give you more time for you to be able to spend on growing your company and creating a greater vision, or being more creative, or being more innovative, or spending your time helping people believe in themselves and helping other people to step up and be collaborative. As the leader, that's your real role. Now, if you're an entrepreneur or a company of one, then you also need to make sure that you know what your outcome is, instead of doing 50 things. And, I always use this metaphor when it comes to achievers and entrepreneurs. They're not sure exactly what's going to fit. So let's say you're in the backyard and you want to strike oil. So you start digging a 1-foot hole. You dig down about a foot. There's no oil. You jump a foot over. You start digging another hole. There's no oil there. So you jump to something else, and then you jump to something else, and then you jump to something else. Those holes might be Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube videos, newsletters, podcasts, this program, that program, learning how to do CEO, right? Trying to dig all these 1-foot holes, trying to figure out what's going to work. And at the end of the day, your yard is full of 1-foot holes. You're tired, you're dirty, you're exhausted, you haven't struck oil, and you're starting to feel like, what's wrong with me? This is never going to work out. The secret is to start with the end in mind and dig one hole and dig down so deep, drill down so deep that you hit oil. If after 6 months of digging, you haven't hit oil, then you can jump to another hole. Then you can jump to another section. Then you can jump to another goal. All right. But most people don't give themselves enough time. There's not enough consistency. There's not enough continuity. If you haven't done it long enough to be able to get the big breakthroughs that you want. In company, a lot of times when companies hire new trainers or new educators, I've had company presidents and CEOs say, hey, we're bringing you in, but I want you to train yourself out of a job. I don't want you having to be here for years. Well, if I came here for years and you made $50 million more, would that be okay? Because that's happened for some of my clients. I think that would be okay, right? What they're thinking is, you're costing me money, which is a very short-sighted blind sight. Instead of thinking you could make me 10 times the money by helping people to remove their mental malware. And if you don't know what that is, then watch the last live stream that I did. Okay. Or call me and I'll explain it to you. So, strategic blind spots cause us to be short-sighted. And because of that, it causes us to do quick fixes, and it causes us to be scattered, and it causes people to feel like they're getting mixed messages. One day it's this, and then the next day it's this. And then that confusion causes anxiety, and anxiety causes procrastination, and procrastination causes lost opportunity. Okay. All right. Leadership blind spot number 2. And if you have any questions, please make sure you put your questions down in the comment boxes below. If I'm not able to see them, I'm using StreamYard to, which is a program to be able to stream to YouTube, to LinkedIn, to Facebook. So if I don't see your questions, then I've got a deal for you. Okay. If I don't see your questions, I will answer them after the program. I also have a live workshop that I'm doing called Fully Optimized, April 7th. It's a free workshop. It's going to be in Zoom so that we can actually have conversations, and that's going to be a lot of fun. So I'll make sure you have the link so that you can enroll for that free program called Fully Optimized. All right, leadership blind spot number 2, the I know everything blind spot. Have you ever worked for a leader and they just knew it all? They had all the answers. They didn't want your feedback. They already knew what they were going to do. They're only sitting in a meeting and letting you talk so that you can feel like you're getting your ideas and feelings out. But we're going to do what I say anyway. I already know what we're going to do. So I'm just waiting for you to stop talking so that I can jump in, or I'm just going to shut you down. Okay, that's enough. This is what we're going to do. Okay. Now, leading with vision and impact is great. And if you do know what you should do, stepping up as a leader is great. However, if you do not enroll other people in your vision, you will not be able to do it. You got to enroll other people. If you are an entrepreneur, you got to enroll your customers or your clients into what you're offering. If you're a company leader, you got to enroll your employees. You got to enroll your executive team. You got to enroll your department. So, all right, I'm lubricating real quick. Hang on. I've been teaching all day, so the voice is getting a little dry. So Anyway, you've got to enroll people. People support what they co-create. People support what they co-create. If they do not feel like they're a part of the solution, they're going to be part of the problem. They're going to be dragging their feet or looking for ways to mutiny or to sabotage, especially if they don't feel like they're being valued or appreciated. Then they're going to secretly want you to lose or want you to fail. So you've got to make sure that the I know it all blind spot, if you're coming across like that, and sometimes people don't know it. I mean, I've had very high powered entrepreneurs that have serial entrepreneurs that have bought and sold and created, 2 or 3 multi-million-dollar companies. And I remember one in front of me, and just the way that he talked about how confident he was and how bold he was and about how he did things. And, and as I asked him about his leadership team and how he took care of his people, he would tell stories about how they would share their ideas, but I knew all along what we were going to do. So after about 10 minutes and I couldn't handle it anymore, I'd be like, all right, enough. This is what we're going to do. And this is what you're going to do. And this is what you're going to do. And he felt like he was successful because he made a bunch of money, but he sold his companies quickly because he said he had so many problems with turnover and with retaining top talent. So he would build a company, build a team, get it profitable, and then sell it. And that's because he was not a very good leader. He was a good creator. He had great vision, but his people skills were not very good. And when I shared that with him, he was like shocked. He's like, what? He said, no, everybody likes me and all that. And people will put up with you if you're the boss. They'll go along with it so that they don't lose their job. They might hang out with you because they're trying to impress you or get your attention, but it's not often because they like or respect you. And so now that might not be you. I'm just saying in that example, that was a blind spot that they had that they didn't know. People come across very arrogant. People come across very, what we would call the computer, where the computer attitude is just the facts, none of that touchy-feely crap, very aloof, at an arm's length, I don't have time for your feelings, kind of approach, which a lot of times people feel like that's what made them successful. They're the shark. I had one guy say, I'm the money man. I make things happen. If you want to talk to me, you better run with me because I'm moving with purpose. And I literally would watch people running next to him, trying to share ideas and get feedback and information. And he would never stop. And it's like, one, you're making that person feel like they don't matter. And two, they don't have clarity now. So they're going to go back and waste hours and days and weeks and not achieve their goals. And then you're going to think it's them. And you're going to think that people don't care, or they don't work hard enough, or they're not as smart as you. And that's not the case. So sometimes what makes us good in one area weakens us in another area, and that's our blind spot. And people are afraid, well, this is what makes me successful, so I don't want to let go of my mojo. Well, you're not letting go of your mojo. You're creating more mojo because you're enrolling a team that will help you to take it to the next level. You can only go so far by yourself. All right, the third leadership blind spot is what we call the Lone Ranger blind spot. And the Lone Ranger blind spot basically has the belief driving it that I don't need anybody, right? I've been hurt in the past. I've felt abandoned in the past. Now this isn't stuff that people would ever admit, but these are experiences that form beliefs, and these beliefs, our unconscious beliefs, drive behavior. I'm the unconscious beliefs guy, right? So the book I just wrote, One Belief Away, it's all about your unconscious beliefs and biases and habits and blind spots. And if you don't upgrade those beliefs, you cannot upgrade your behavior or your results. And so no matter how successful you might be on paper, you will leave a trail of collateral damage and a really poor reputation because of the blind spots. And so those limiting beliefs that I don't need anybody, you can't trust anybody, people only let you down. If I become friends with people, I lose leverage with them. I won't have any power or influence over them. So I can't be friends with the people that I work with. I can't show weakness. I can't show vulnerability. I always have to show that I'm the one in charge, that I'm smart, my way or the highway. If you don't like it, hit the door. That old approach is going out fast. That 20th century leadership model is flying out the door because you know what? Generation Z and younger millennials, they'll be like, okay, see ya. And then they'll leave and they'll go work for your competition, and they'll work hard for your competitors to come back at you. Now their mission and what gives them significance is crushing you, right? You don't want to build an army of people who want to crush you, right? And a lot of times people will be like, yeah, but that's not what I'm trying to do. No, it isn't. But if it's coming across that way, it doesn't matter what your intentions are. If it's coming across that way, if that's how people are taking it, if you're a manager or a supervisor and you're getting your people are rating you a low score for your leadership empathy or your leadership care or trust. 63% of people, of employees across the board in every industry, in every sector, don't trust their leaders. And it's probably more now since COVID. Most people don't trust the vaccines. They don't trust the masks. They don't trust the government. They don't trust the president. They don't trust other countries. It's just gotten really high since the pandemic. And so now that trust is even lower. It's probably more like 80% of people just don't trust even each other. That's a real problem, because success and sales and company growth and corporate cultures are built on trust. It is the foundation of a happy workplace culture. So the old model of my way or the highway is out. So instead of being the Lone Ranger where you don't need anybody's help and you're not going to compliment anybody else and you're not going to appreciate anybody else because you don't need it. I mean, I've worked with some leaders that were really, really good leaders on paper, but they had a tough time, really rallying other people because they didn't need compliments. They didn't think they'd ever really get them anyway. They didn't get them much growing up from dad or from mom. And so they don't really feel like they need them. They're very resilient and self-motivated and self-contained, but that means they don't give them either. And there are a lot of people that want those compliments, that want the pat on the back, that want the validation, that want the appreciation, that want the significance, that want to know that they're making a difference, especially the younger generations. They want to do work that matters, and they want to feel appreciated for it. And whether you agree with that or you like that or not doesn't really matter, because if you want to influence people, you got to treat them the way they want to be treated. And then they will return the favor with discretionary effort and greater engagement and more productivity and more creativity and innovation and everything that we want that increases top and bottom line growth, and that increases our margin. And your greatest competitive advantage probably isn't your product or service. It's probably your people, and so, and how they rally for you and how they take care of you and what they say about you online. All of that matters in the 21st century. Leadership blind spot number 4, not defining expectations. Before COVID, I felt like the whole world was on a runaway railroad train, and they were just going so fast. Like we built these giant hamster wheels and now we can't get off the dang things. I'm so busy. I would hear that all the time. I would hear leaders consistently, every company I went to, I've got so much going on. I'm too busy to train my people. When you're a leader, a supervisor, a manager, when you are the leader, that is your whole job. To empower people, to coach people to success. And if you feel like you're too busy to coach others because you're trying to get your own stuff done, when that pressure of trying to take care of everybody and hit your own numbers becomes impossible, that's when people were breaking down. That's when people are putting on 50 pounds and drinking too much and smoking a pack and a half of cigarettes every day and guzzling Starbucks and popping pills and getting on antidepressants and burning out and having anxiety attacks and all the other stuff that happens. And then we're fighting with our spouse, and then we're not visiting our kids. And then, it just becomes a train wreck, right? And that's how so many of us were feeling before the pandemic. Once we were forced, a lot of us, to stay home, things slowed down a little bit. And actually, people working from home felt like they were way more productive. Some felt lonely because of the social isolation, and we were getting Zoom fatigue for sure. However, most people actually felt like their productivity increased because they had quiet. They could take care of themselves. As long as they were getting the work done and getting what they needed to get done, they made their own hours. And it became like, oh my gosh, I got my life back. I'm off the hamster wheel. How nice. So that leadership blind spot of not defining expectations is when people are not clear on what the outcome is, what we're doing to get there, what your role in it is, what everybody else's role in it is, how that all works together. We're all spark plugs in the engine. If one spark plug isn't working, the engine doesn't run right. So it's not that sales are the best department and the most important department. It's not that, merchandising is, or shipping, or, operations. It is all of it together, all of it together. And a lot of leaders were so busy that they were not clarifying the vision. They weren't helping people to be clear on what they were doing and how they could grow and how it could get better, because everybody was just scrambling to get through the day, not getting from the day. And that's where lost opportunities occur. That's where big, expensive mistakes happen, because there's no real clear communication. There's a whole bunch of assumptions that are false, and then we don't even know it. And that's what causes the breakdowns, the mistakes, all the errors, all the, unhappy customers. And it all comes down to the beliefs that every single human being that you have working with you, we all have these limiting beliefs. We're all infected by mental malware. We're all infected by fear or negative beliefs that we have about ourselves that sometimes we don't even know is there. And it sabotages our focus, our ability to communicate, our ability to lean in, our ability to stay self-motivated, or to build trusting relationships, or to be more sensitive and caring and compassionate when you're communicating with other people. Influences all of that. So the goal, of course, is to recognize it and then be clear and make sure everybody else is clear. I love the word clarification. Let's use some clarification. I have a buddy named J.B. Simons. He was a Navy SEAL, and then he was also a medic on the SEAL team. And then afterwards, he became a psychologist, and then he became a pastor. And I mean, he was just an amazing guy. And he said one day, he says, Tim, he says, you know why a team of 6 could effectively disrupt a team of 30? And I said, how's that? And he said, because of clarification, because we were all clear on what our role was. This is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what you're going to do. We're all clear on what we're doing. And everybody felt good about asking for clarification. And the CO, the chief officer, he's the one that took responsibility. If you don't understand something, it's my fault, right? And so I want to make sure that everybody is clear on what's going on. Nobody felt dumb. Nobody felt inferior. Nobody felt stupid for asking a question. Nobody felt like you were going to judge me or you were going to use it against me, because they had built trust. And they had to be collaborative. They had to have this clarification, because you have your plan A, and then when boots are on the ground and bullets are zipping over your head, you often might shift into plan B. And if you're not clear on what plan B is, then you're in trouble, especially in life and death situations. So, but it happens in business and creates havoc all the time. Number 5, okay, unconscious bias blind spots. We all have unconscious biases about other people. Diversity, the word diversity basically means anything that's different from you, anything that's different, right? So it could be a different race, a different culture, a different skin color, a different, if you have tattoos or you don't have tattoos, sports teams, where you grew up, what country you grew up in, anything that's different. If you speak a different language, we call that diversity. And we have lots and lots of unconscious ideas that we have all absorbed because of our culture, our religion, our government, where we grew up, all the unconscious biases, all the beliefs and stereotypes and prejudices from the people that raised us when we were little kids. We have that in our brain. Now, we all know our own stereotypes. We all know the stereotypes that we have of other people. And even if we would be ashamed of that now and say, well, I can't believe that thought came into my mind. I don't even accept that thought. I don't like that thought even came into my mind. It's the unconscious beliefs that we're unaware of that are the most dangerous, the ones that we don't know are there. So just a very common, belief is that, all men are aggressive and all women are emotional. Right? Or only men should be in the military because they're stronger or better, fighters than women. Women should only give birth and they're not good leaders. They should only raise children. These are obviously false and damaging ideas, but they're gender biases, right? And our brain was filled with them growing up watching TV because that's how the families were. And so that's what we saw growing up. We live in a very different world right now than we did in 1980. I mean, watch the movies, and you'll be like, wow, their place would be in an uproar if they were saying those things today. And so we are full of unconscious biases and we don't even know it. One of my great friends, Carrie, she started off as a director of HR, but through our work together, she is now the director of employee experience. Okay, because that's what she really does. She creates great experiences for the people that she works with, where before HR was a place you went to when you got in trouble. Okay, so we changed that in the culture. And Carrie said that I know that I have biases. I can't even help it. And so when I'm looking at resumes to hire people and to interview people, I don't even look at their names. I only look at their qualifications and how they contribute, and or maybe how they solve problems or how they want to add value or contribute. I don't even look at names, because if I see a name and it seems like a foreign name, it might influence me. After 9/11, if your name was Abed, you probably weren't going to get hired, at a primarily white institution, in a company in America, because, well, that must mean you're a terrorist, which of course was false and damaging. And that was more damaging than even the Twin Towers, is the fear and the mistrust. I mean, that's what terrorism really is. It's breaking people down from within. Companies don't fall usually from being taken over. They fall from crumbling from within. And so, like Rome didn't fall from outside invaders. It fell from the corruption that happened inside. And so we want to make sure of our unconscious biases. We want to find all of our limiting beliefs and unconscious beliefs. And that's really hard to do on your own because you can't see the label when you're in the bottle. So what we have to do is be more objective. And the best way to be objective is by getting feedback from others. Now they have different surveys and tests and quizzes and things that you can do to get feedback, but I'm going to share 5 questions that you could go and ask 5 people that you trust. And I would ask somebody that maybe you don't get along with really well, like your spouse, or somebody. I'm just kidding. But ask these questions that because people will give you feedback. What you're looking for is honest feedback. If they're afraid of you, they may not give you that honest feedback. So we want to make sure that we are letting people know it's okay. I want this because I want to be a better leader. All right. So question number 1 is, what do I do well as a leader? Let's start with something. What do I do well? What do you think are some of my strengths? What do you think I maybe should do more of that you like? Okay. Number 2, what do I not do so well? What are some areas where I could improve? What are some ways that maybe I communicate, or how I come across, or how I lead a meeting, or if you have a question or you need help, or, what's something that maybe I don't do so well so I can improve upon it? Number 3, what should I keep doing? What's something that you feel is one of my best strengths and I should keep doing that? Number 4, what should I stop doing right away? What should I stop doing immediately? Now, it may sting a little bit when you get some of this feedback, but it will save you. It will save you. When people were first getting polio vaccinations, which, really saved a lot of people and a lot of kids, the kids never liked the shots, but the little poke in the arm saved them from polio, from a whole crippling disease. So it might be a bit of a sting when you're getting some feedback, but it will transform the way that you lead others if you keep seeking that feedback. And then number 5, is there anything else you think would help me improve as a leader? Is there anything else, any other ideas or thoughts that you think might help me? And sometimes these thoughts are stuff you've already heard. Sometimes It's stuff that maybe really doesn't feel like it fits or applies. And then sometimes somebody's going to say something to you and it's like, oh, it's like magic. It's like, oh, wow, I had never thought of that before. I'd never heard of that before. And that kind of inspiration, those kinds of insights are golden. They're huge. It's amazing. So you want to ask those questions and know that getting honest feedback is really, it can be uncomfortable at times, but it is what gives you the gold. Your biggest breakthroughs are hidden in the places you don't want to go. So if you decide I'm resisting here, I need to go here, you're going to have huge breakthroughs. And then people are going to admire you. And then you know what happens is other people will be more open to asking these questions and getting feedback for themselves. People model the behavior of their leaders. I would always laugh when I would go in for an assessment and I would have a leadership team or a couple of people, a CFO or a VP, and and they'd be all of a sudden going off and complaining about how people don't want to work and how people are being rude and people aren't doing what they need to be doing. And then I would just smile because I know what they're doing is they're modeling that person's behavior. And I would often say, employees model the behavior of their leaders. So if you're seeing dysfunction in the workplace, and a lot of times people didn't want to hear that, right? Because they want someone else to be wrong. They don't want to have to look at themselves. Oh, I'm good. We don't have the problem. I will tell you, if I work with a company and someone introduced me that's a leader, and I remember when I first started out, I was working for a mortgage company, one of my first seminars, and the senior leader there, he introduced me to everybody that was there. And then every time I would start to do a training, he would go outside and smoke a cigarette. And it drove me nuts. I won't even tolerate that now because who needed it the most? Who needed the most amount of tools and tips, not for selling, but for learning how to be a better leader? The guy that was outside smoking. Okay, so I've learned a lot in my decades of shifting behavior and building high-performing teams. And so I will tell you that getting feedback is the most powerful way of creating transformation and powerful workplace cultures and exceeding your revenue goals and year after year and creating sustainable growth. This is how you do it. And when you make the time, it is extraordinary. When you invest the time, the money, and the resources into it, it gives you a gigantic return on your investment. If you've done that before and it didn't give you a return, you weren't working with the right trainer or the right company. Okay, so because my clients have always had a return. I've never been an expense. I've always been an asset because, you give me $10, I'll give you 100 back. That's how it works. And so anyway, April 7th, I hope you got some stuff from this. If you want to talk about, maybe I've seen this with my leader, you have questions about the blind spots, make sure you leave them in the comments below. April 7th, I'm inviting you to a special program. It's an hour-long program called Fully Optimized, How to Eliminate Mental Malware and Spark Exponential Growth. We're going to be doing it in a Zoom call format, so you can register. I have it as an event set up in LinkedIn. If you don't see it for some reason, then just send me an email, tim@timsure.com, and or just reach out and message me through one of these platforms or call me, area code 317-502-5293, 317-502-5293. Give me a call and I will help get you set up for that. And otherwise, start to use some of these questions. Maybe take it home and use it to improve your marriage or your relationship with your kids. There's so much COVID fatigue and COVID burnout that using these questions can actually strengthen what happens with your family as well. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'll be back next Wednesday with another episode to help you to live your best life now. So enjoy the rest of your day. Use what you've learned to make it a sure success, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.